Could Glasgow see the return of its iconic orange buses of the Strathclyde Transport era? Well, one think tank believes that reform of the city's bus services could dramatically boost productivity to such an extent that it would benefit tax revenues not just in Scotland but across the UK. A previous report from the Centre for Cities helped shape Manchester's decision to take buses back into local control. And let's find out more now with the CEO of the Centre for Cities, Andrew Carter. Andrew, welcome to Politics Scotland. So right now, buses in Glasgow and the wider Strathclyde region, private companies operating on the routes that they'd like. You're talking about a franchise system, private bus firms operating on set routes. Now, with think tanks like yours, it's always worth having a look at who funds you, and you're very transparent on your website with that. One of the firms that has given you money in the past, Abellio, they do support the franchise model. And just before we get into all of this, are you completely satisfied that the report you've published today is independent?
Absolutely, completely. The Centre's been around for 15 to 16 years. We're always transparent about any sponsorship or monies that we receive, and it doesn't. I'm pretty happy to say that it doesn't in any way affect the findings and the recommendations that we produce. And you can look at our back catalogue to demonstrate that.
Andrew, brilliant. Let's talk about those recommendations. Talk us through what you mean by a franchise model, what you'd potentially like to see change in the Strathclyde region and how it would all work.
Yeah, so you said in your introductory comments, I think the best way to think about the bus system outside of London in the rest of Britain is essentially a free-for-all where private operators operate and they decide the services that they want to run, the fares that they want to charge, and the way they go. In London, it's the London transport system, or the Transport for London, that sets the system that it wants to see, sets where the route should be, how often they should be run, the fares that are going to be charged, and essentially it contracts with bus providers in order to deliver those kinds of services. And as you've said, Greater Manchester is now adopting and moving into that model, and we would encourage Glasgow, but also other big cities in the UK to adopt a similar model.
So you're talking about the potential here for more frequent bus services, more integrated transport, the idea of being able to jump off a bus in Glasgow onto the subway, onto a train, tapping in and tapping out with the same system. All sounds like it's potentially going to cost money. When we talk about Manchester moving to a similar model, did that cost them a lot of money?
Yeah, so looking at the Manchester model, obviously we haven't done the detailed modelling for Glasgow, but when you look at the Manchester, they reckon that the transition process and then essentially running the franchise system, which also involves additional infrastructure investment and also investment to support fares at a lower rate than they would be otherwise, all in is about 400 to 500 million over a 5 to 10 year period. The other point I would make is it's an important point to make. Although we have this free-for-all system, there is an awful lot of public subsidies swashing around in the bus markets already. It's just it's badly allocated and it's badly integrated and it's badly coordinated. So we're not getting the broader benefits that we would otherwise.
And your argument essentially here is that this could pay for itself, if I'm right. You think we could see increased economic productivity, more money going to the Treasury off the back of this. Is that purely because people would be working more, would be spending less time standing about waiting for transport, essentially?
Yes, essentially, one of the things that we know drives productivity, drives prosperity, is the ability to people to move around within a labour market. And when you look at the labour market of Greater Glasgow, Glasgow City region, it's not as big as we would ideally want it to be. We think that, all things being equal, that the investment and the move towards franchising could increase the labour market size by about 30 to 40%. And if you did that, then you get gains. People are better able to find more jobs. Firms are better able to provide to find more workers. That drives up wages, prosperity, and in a sense that provides a return then to both to Glasgow, to Scotland, and ultimately to the UK.
Now, in your report today, some of the policies you discuss for perhaps helping towards this is the idea of congestion charging for drivers, workplace parking levies, essentially charging people to park at their place of work. Are these hard policies to sell at a time where the cost of living is quite so difficult?
Yeah, so we were deliberate in saying that, firstly, a principle, I think, is that in the first 5 years of the franchising scheme, if it was introduced, we would expect nearly all of the funding to come from Scottish government redirection of resources, etc. And that reflects the fact that Glasgow is 20% of the Scottish economy. So it's a big place. We can get more out of it. Scotland does well. In the second tranche, the 5-year to 10-year period, what we're then saying as a principle is that we ought to then move to a system where local partners and local organizations are making a contribution to the costs of running the bus system. And it's an important point to make. Even if you look at the transport system in London, the bus element requires cross-subsidization. It gets it from the tube. So very few bus systems wash their face simply on passenger income, but a principle would be that there would be a partnership between local actors and national actors, and in particularly the case of Glasgow, because it is a big part of Scotland.
OK, we'll need to leave that there for now. Andrew Carter, thanks very much. Andrew Carter there from the Centre for Cities think tank.